Boy, am I tired of the suits. What do these people even friggin' do? And for the longest time, I thought it was a cliche that out of touch, thumb twiddling executives were a thing. But in my recent experience, it certainly seems to kind of be the case. So they're trying to cut hours at my hub. They think people are working too long, not working fast enough. So all of this is happening at the same time as far as what I'm experiencing is the same amount of volume, the same amount of the packages that go on the truck as during peak season, which is our busiest time around Christmas. And if we're getting that amount of volume, that means the revenue is pretty good, meaning that, outside of a gap of understanding on my part, which is possible, they have the resources to pay people for doing the backbreaking work they're doing without rushing them and causing the safety hazards that they're trying to pride themselves on preventing through their little methodologies and acronyms and things that they try to drill into your head but don't really make you practice. It's like you don't really learn by just repeating a list. You have to actually implement it over time. Anyhow, if they want everybody to go this quickly, the equipment can't be faulty, but it is. They don't take the time to repair the little scanner things. They're always on the fritz. The button is out of kilter, and it's just horrific. And the managers are giving conflicting instructions that the drivers are like, what the hell? Why are you putting the smalls in front of the big packages? They're gonna fall off the friggin' shelf. So yeah, before expecting quicker load times, coming by in your nice clothes as everybody is working their ass off, maybe address the issues that cause this friction. But of course, that's a fantasy world that we don't live in, which is why I drink. Now, actually, I drink because drinking is delicious and it is a celebration of life. You should never drink to ease the pain. It doesn't work. It just gives you heartburn. Anyhow, so what I do on this show, Fractal Stand, which is, I think this is the 24th or 25th installment of, is I talk about various odds and ends. A lot of them that I stumble across, through recommendations from Pocket on Firefox. And one of those articles was of the myth of learning styles, which has been a pet peeve of mine. All these little psychological, ideas that seem very intuitive and are very intuitively satisfying, but upon closer examination hold no water. And I would have to say that you should really kind of be leery of them from the get-go, because they're not that good. They're describing something that's very complex, very multivariate, and breaking it down to this simplistic nonsense, which, I took a small psychology course back in my community college days, and I had a professor that I actually really enjoyed, and he always made the case that one of the biggest disservices you can do to people is to oversimplify them and to think that you can have a solution and that there's like one thing that you can tailor to. And he also warned against these psychotropic drugs, that it's like taking a very thin piece of plywood board and jamming a nail in there and thinking it's going to work. But anyway, I'm getting off course. So this kind of learning style thing, if you're my age, you've probably heard about it. You're either a visual, auditory, a reader, or a kinesthetic. And that was actually something that a man who was a school inspector came up one time when he was touring schools in New Zealand. And he noticed, how different students did stuff. And basically, its spread seems to have come to that whole self-esteem movement of the 80s and 90s. If you watch Beavis and Butthead, you have the hippie teacher with the guitar. Those are the kind of people that would probably propagate it. And teachers, in general, enjoy the idea of control, of being able to cater and tailor the class to everybody's individual needs. So that's kind of another thing that helped it grow exponentially. And as a result, by the time students are in college, they have this ingrained concept of themselves as one learner or another, and they kind of try to siphon everything through whatever avenue that happens to be. Now, despite this highly ingrained notion, it seems to really not be a thing according to a lot of recent studies. And, well, as that ornery douchebag Paul Joseph Watson would say, imagine my shock. See, in my opinion, the learning thing is pretty easy to break down of how you get people to learn. First, you gotta have somebody that wants to learn. You can never force somebody to learn something or to want to learn something. You can only try to convince them that it's worth their time. And then you have to do it across multiple avenues of engagement. So you have to present the information to them in many different ways. And also, sometimes the information just doesn't lend itself to a particular method. So if you're trying to teach me about, something like the novels of Jules Verne, it's like, well, I mean, are you gonna make me, go onto a submarine? I guess that could help with imagination, but really you should just read it to me or have me read it. Yeah, and the quality of instruction is very, very important, that the teacher can actually communicate things in an interesting way and in an accurate way and describe it from multiple angles. And that's a difficult art to master. That's certainly not a skill that I have, so mad respect to the teachers that have had those skills. But anyway, what's interesting is that in one of the studies that was performed to ascertain the validity of this notion of VARK, which is the visual, auditory, reading, kinesthetic, is that the visual learners performed well on all kinds of tests. So, in a 2009 study, they found that if you're a visualizer and they give you pictures, you don't remember pictures any better than somebody who says that they're a verbalizer. So we all kind of have these capacities. So what it breaks down to is not really learning styles, but different abilities. So some people can read better than other people, some people can draw better than other people, and it's really more of kind of a Rorschach that tells you what you like and about your personality and your desires. But yeah. So just because you like something doesn't mean that you're good at it. And what you should really do is you can do all of those learning styles because everybody's able to do all of them, but try to treat them as tools rather than something that's a pattern that you have to follow for success, and pick the one that's most suited to the task at hand. And what they found repeatedly in terms of learning and retention is that focus, not sitting there and watching the ball game with some flashcards, is what helps you learn the best. Yeah, so this to me is kind of like, as I was saying at the beginning, very cathartic to read because it reinforces my idea that these kind of broad brush categorizations of people, these explanations that make you feel savvy understanding human nature, just are bunk. They turn out to be bunk because we're not that simple. Yeah. So moving right along, my last little tidbit of info that I wanted to toss out there in this vlog is I'm writing, obviously a story about diving, or trying to, and so I'm researching all kinds of stuff about emerging diving technologies and all sorts of stuff like that. I mean, I always found it fascinating because one of my favorite books is Michael Crichton's Sphere, where they live in that habitat. And so let's talk about a habitat, Aquarius Underwater Laboratory, which was established in 1986. I believe around the time that Sphere was probably written. And originally it was owned by the National Oceanographic and Aeronautic Association and North Carolina Wilmington University, but now Florida International University owns it, and it's an undersea lab for scientists studying the marine environment. It's in about 60 feet of water, 4.5 kilometers off of Key Largo. And that would be really sweet to go out there. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance. But what this is basically for is to allow saturation diving. So if you stay down there, you don't have to go up, and it decreases the risk of getting decompression, sickness, and stuff like that. And they're able to work underwater for 24 hours a day for missions that last usually up to 10 days, and then they decompress in the actual habitat, and they I think dive to the surface because it's 60 60 feet, and it just allows them to have all this time to study the environment and how all of the effects of overfishing and stuff, affect that. And as background research, well, I looked at, predecessors and things, and I was thinking Sea Lab 2020 seemed to be based on something from the 60s, and lo and behold, yeah, there were like military programs done by the Navy. There were like 3 Sea Labs, and basically this seems like that this habitat and the others that are like it are, the progeny of those earlier forays into this saturation deep environment diving, which is a really, really neat thing. The way that it's built is also really cool because apparently it adjusts to the condition of the sea floor. I'm on their NOAA website right here, and let's see, the Aquarius base plate is the 116-ton structure that provides a stable and level support base for the habitat. Each of the 4 legs contains 25 tons of lead ballast. The legs have 7 feet of adjustment for leveling in variable seafloor terrain through the use of hydraulically driven screw jacks. The habitat and base plate were designed to survive severe storm conditions and have successfully weathered hurricanes in both the Caribbean and Florida. And that is just a friggin' marvel of engineering. It's always neat what people can do, and that deserves a celebratory shot of Santiago, wherever I put it, which is like wine and liquor at the same time. It's made from grapes. It's 84 proof, so it's not terribly alcoholic, and it gives you a nice clean sort of buzz if you don't overdo it, at least in my experience. Oh, Lord have mercy. Whew. So I hope that everyone is doing well. This is, of course, all that I can come up with today because I keep on having these hectic days, but hopefully soon it'll all resolve. So, as the cup says, cheers to 30 years or however many years you spent on this crazy planet that's circumnavigating a burning frigging inferno. Adios. Oh, subscribe and like it, all that happy horseshit. My website, fractaljournal.com.